Hi everyone, as promised, I'm back with another reflection. And today I'm going to dive into a theme that lies at the heart of even my coaching work, a factor that has helped many Atlantas succeed and even thrive, and that is vulnerability. But first, a very warm welcome to all those who have recently joined the Atlanta Diaries community. I hope you had a chance to listen to my introductory episode where I shared my purpose and the heart behind Atalanta. To my loyal listeners, your support means the world to me. And a heartfelt thank you to my Atlantas for aligning with my mission and bringing their whole selves into our conversations. I've received feedback from many listeners on how perseverance and building mentorship and allies resonated with them. Thank you for sharing all your reflections. As your partner in this journey, like always, I encourage you to pause and reflect. If you had set any goals for yourself, and how did you fare in those goals? Did you reach out to your mentors? Did you reflect on how did you support someone? Maybe a colleague, maybe a team member, maybe a family member. I'd love to hear on how that played out. In case you missed the first musings, or in case you want to go back to the first two musings, you can click on episode 84 and episode 88. Now back to vulnerability and how that played a huge role in helping my Atlantas build trust and strong relationships. I have picked up 5 conversations from 5 of my Atlantas, and I'm going to share with you how they embraced vulnerability and became stronger leaders and build psychological safety amongst their team members. Each story carries its own wisdom on how vulnerability can be a powerful tool for connection, growth, and authentic leadership. Let's start with Kim Kirkconnell, Vice President and Head of Global Digital Supply Chain and Finance at Kimberly-Clark. In our conversation, Kim shared her approach to handling tough days with her team. Basically, I asked her, so you do feel like a victim sometimes, but I'm understanding that you wouldn't let that last too long. And let me tell you what Kim had to share verbatim. Everybody has that moment. I mean, you wouldn't be human if you didn't have that moment where you felt sorry for yourself. I've had moments where I'm like, wow, that's terrible. I just want to shut my office door for a minute, sit down, and feel sorry for myself. But then I get myself together and I'm honest with them, saying, I'm having a bad day. I don't know how much more can go wrong today. I think you should let people know if you're not in the right frame of mind, whether you're worried about your family, kids, or just something else. It's okay to let them know so they can approach you when you're back at your best. In fact, Kim shared, if I can share my vulnerability, I can be a better person and process things effectively, even for my team members. Having shared her journey of vulnerability, Kim emphasized the importance of leadership and actively encourages women to consider stepping into these roles. She believes that leadership is an opportunity not to wait, but to seize, offering a unique path for growth and impact. For Kim, inspiring women to recognize their own leadership potential is both essential and deeply rewarding. When I reflect on my conversation with Kim, I do remember the vulnerability she brought into our conversation. I do remember Kim emphasizing the importance of leadership and how she actively encouraged women to consider stepping into leadership roles. She really believes that everyone needs to experience leadership. She believes that it's an opportunity not to wait, but to seize, because it offers a unique path for growth and impact. For Kim, inspiring women to recognize their own leadership potential is both essential and deeply rewarding. If you want to listen to our entire conversation, you can go to episode 45. Now let's move to my conversation with Monica Retamal. She has been a social entrepreneur since 2015 and was a technology entrepreneur since 1999. Monica is based in Chile and she currently serves as the executive director and founder of Kodea, a not-for-profit with a mission to digitally empower Latin Americans and champion female digital empowerment. To put things in context, Monica's native language is not English, yet she pushed herself way out of her comfort zone. Despite the fact that she was not super comfortable with English, She used to travel to the States and her team used to sponsor her to be the face of the organization. In Monica's words, my English wasn't great, but I'd start by telling them I'm nervous. And guess what? People would immediately connect with that. It's like they saw me as someone real, showing my problems and my being fragile. Sometimes I'd be traveling with important leaders, even the president of Chile, and they'd ask what I wanted to discuss. And I'd say, maybe we can just listen to music. She believes that approach helped her and believes that people appreciate that kind of openness. Monica also shared how she can't work in an environment where she feels attacked or tense. She said, I'm very bad at ignoring conflict. If I feel tension, I go straight to resolve it. I need to feel that I'm in a safe place. And I always try to put a lot of effort to say the truth. She also went on to saying that I think in business, people often don't say the truth. They try to decorate things. But I'm always the one to say, hey guys, what are we really talking about here? When I do that, people feel in a way nude. But at the same time, it opens up a real connection, a human connection. And Monica went on to saying, and I never forget that I'm working with people. I still remember she was uncomfortable doing an interview in English, but I think she believed in the mission of Atlanta Diaries and brought her absolute vulnerable self to the amazing conversation she and I had. To listen to my conversation with Monica, you can click on episode 81. Let's move to Jenny Dearborn. Jenny is a thought leader in HR, human capital management, the future of work, and data analytics. Jenny's perspective on vulnerability took a very unique turn as she shared the deeply personal decision to reveal her neurodiversity after years of concealing it. So when I asked Jenny how comfortable did she feel talking to her teams about her challenges, she talked about the time when she was a chief people officer at SAP. Jenny said, I think we have to be careful about the advice that we give, like show up and be our authentic selves and things like that. I think people need to be cautious about that because it almost comes from a position of privilege to say, be yourself, show up, as that could backfire on somebody. You need to understand your circumstances and the culture in which you operate to decide if that makes sense. I didn't share with my company or teams that I had learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, and was on the autism spectrum for 20 years. I was terrified that anyone would find out. It used to take me much longer to read through documents. And in the 90s and the early 2000s, if I'd said I need more time, I knew it wouldn't have gone well. Only after reaching a certain high level did I feel comfortable saying I'm neurodiverse. SAP's agenda on diversity, including neurodiversity, made it safe for me. That corporate stance allowed me to come forward, and when I did, people reached out saying, thank you for making it safe. Because early on, there was nobody in a corporate setting owning up to that. When I listened to Jenny's conversation, I reflected on the many conversations I had with many of my coaches. This perspective really helped them to understand that there's a time to be vulnerable. You have to watch where, when you're bringing that vulnerability because you want it to be helpful for you. You don't want it to backfire, like Jenny said, because while you might want to bring your vulnerable self, not all environments make it psychologically safe for you to bring your vulnerable self. So I really felt that Jenny's perspective on vulnerability was unique and it made me understand that it's not a one size fit all, different strokes for different folks. Let's move to Alina Alam, a true pioneer and change maker who defied the odds, challenging societal norms with her unstoppable passion. Founder and CEO of Mitty Cafe, Alina started Mitty Cafe with zero startup capital, facing multiple rejections for a vision of empowering people with disabilities, all when she was just 24 years old. Today, Mitty Cafe has grown to over 40 locations across India, including the Supreme Court of India. For Alina, vulnerability is not just about sharing successes. It's about acknowledging struggle. Because she was so passionate about what she was doing, I didn't even know if this question would make sense to her, but I still asked her. I asked her if she ever felt demotivated or hopeless in her journey with Meti Cafe, especially given the number of naysayers who came in her journey. And here goes Alina's response. Of course, your question makes total sense, Enma. Yes, I mean, I felt demotivated, low, defeated many, many times. I mean, till today, there are so many pitches that have not worked out for us. There are so many clients where we've reached a stage where, we've signed the contract and it's still not worked out. There'll be times when people are not at all that nice with you. They will try to find a reason that doesn't even exist to really pull you down. And those are the moments when you need to rely on, of course, faith, but also understand that vulnerability is a great strength that you have at that time. It's important that you speak up about what is good, but also speak up about what is not good. And you try to diffuse that by sharing it with the larger community, the larger ecosystem, and get all of them together to combat this one challenge. Alina went on to further share that when things go south, I know that I can reach out to my mentors and say to them that I can see that this is the mess that I've made. I just love when she said, you don't have to be on the sales mode with everyone. You need to have people you can just be your real, terrible self with. Alina is absolutely incredible. And for those of you who live in India, do make a trip and look for her in many airports in India, including the Bangalore airport, Indore airport. And if you want to listen to my conversation with Alina, you can click on episode 74 of Atlanta Diaries. Last but not the least, I want to share a part of my conversation with Devika Bulchandani, the global CEO of Ogilvy. Devika's story is a powerful testament to vulnerability as a form of leadership. She shared a moment of frustration when she allowed herself to be human, when she was stretched too thin. And this is just one of the many insights she shared with me in our conversation together. I basically asked her, help me understand your definition of vulnerability and how do you make your job look easy when it's not easy? So Devika went on to saying, let me give you an example from last night and this morning. I was talking to Gloria, who's been my assistant for a very long time. I couldn't live without her, and she was telling me about my travel schedule. And I just snapped at her, and I was like, there's no way I can do that because it was an insane travel. And I just said, I don't want to hear about it. Like somebody fix it. I did that, and I knew it was very wrong of me. And this is my vulnerability moment for her. One is apologizing. I was wrong. She didn't deserve to be snapped at over the phone. I could have spoken about it the very next day when I was more cool. So acknowledging that I'm not right. And it's super important, by the way. You're not going to be right all the time. And I'm going to snap sometimes. But the most important thing is what I had to tell her after that. I told her, Gloria, I am human. I can't go to Australia and then from Australia take an overnight flight to Singapore, then do 2 days in Singapore, then fly back here. The second weekend, I'm traveling from Singapore back to New York. And the following weekend, I have an intense week with people coming in from Latin America. I just can't do it. She went on sharing another moment of vulnerability. She said, I came into the office the other day and I walked in the office and I said, oh God, I just don't feel like working. And it was a day I didn't have 7 client meetings and 8 crises to deal with. It was a very easy way for me to tell Gloria, can you cancel all my meetings? I'm going to call my daughter and I'm going to take her out for a meal. But I decided that it would be absolutely wrong for me to do that. So I walked around the entire office telling everybody I really didn't feel like working. So I was coming to just hang out and waste their time. And they thought it was hysterically funny. It was my way of saying, I feel like this sometimes. So I understand even if you feel like this some days. It's basically just normalizing it for people. Devika said, I talk about menopause all the time. I'm going through some crazy ass menopause nonsense. Basically, as leaders, every time you're vulnerable, you're actually normalizing it for your team. Vulnerability is not your weakness. Vulnerability is your humanness. As you can imagine, Vulnerability shines through each of these Atalantas, not as a weakness, but as a strength that has helped them build trust in their teams, a strength that has helped them build psychological safety in their teams, a strength that has fostered authentic connections and open space for genuine growth in leadership. In my own journey, especially as a coach, when I shared my own story, I also often notice a shift in my client's body language, a relaxing of shoulders, a slight nod, or even a faint smile. It's a moment when conversations suddenly become less guarded, as if my openness has given them the permission to exhale. In that shared space, we're able to dig deeper, explore areas which they did not even think they will feel safe to address. This is where genuine connections happen and where real growth starts to take place. Vulnerability to me is about letting others know they're not in it alone, normalizing those difficult feelings, and creating great space where they feel comfortable sharing their own challenges. I also invite you to take a moment to reflect. How do you allow vulnerability to shape your leadership journey? Do you encourage your teams to bring their true selves to the organization? Is it an environment of psychological safety? A space where people feel secure to speak openly and honestly? Consider also, how do you want to express vulnerability in a way that feels authentic to you? Because like we've seen across all the conversations, there's no single approach. Vulnerability looks different for everyone, and there's no mold we all fit into. Thank you for listening. And if these reflections resonated with you, or if you know someone who might benefit from them, do consider sharing this message. Next time, we'll explore another critical success factor, which is self-awareness, and how recognizing that we alone have the power to manage our stress and our success. And for that, we need to look in the mirror and not through a magnifying glass. I'm excited to share this reflection through an incredibly vulnerable conversation with a very strong and courageous woman. And until then, keep pushing forward, stay true to your purpose, persevere, and try and bring your vulnerable self into your leadership. Have a wonderful rest of the day and see you next time.